Walk into any pool store this weekend and count the bottles on the wall. I did it Tuesday, waiting on a case of chlorine, and I quit counting somewhere past 60. Now count how many of those are solving a problem your water actually has. That number is a lot smaller, and it's the whole video. 7 chemicals are coming off your shelf today, counted down from 7 to 1. Then I'll give you the 3 that stay, and those 3 are the entire shelf. I've run a service route across eastern Missouri and southwestern Illinois for 25 years. I was standing at a pad in Collinsville this morning with my arm in somebody's skimmer, so none of this is theory. I'm not a homeowner who finally figured something out. I'm the guy who shows up after the shelf didn't work. Here's what I want you to wait for. At the end, I'm naming the 3 bottles, and I'm giving you what a full season costs with only those 3. Not a guess, not a range I made up to sound good. It's the number I actually spend per customer pool every year, and you can hold it against what you spent last summer. Nobody in this video is stupid. You were sold something. Let's start at 7. Number 7 is Algicide, the annual bottle, about $25 a quart, sold as insurance against green water. Consumer algicides are low-concentration quaternary ammonium compounds. They work like a soap, breaking down the cell wall until the algae can't hold together. A bloom isn't an algicide shortage. It's a chlorine shortage that got a few warm days. Free chlorine at 2 to 4 parts per million with stabilizer in range kills algae faster than any quat. Every late July, I open a shed and find a half-used bottle from 3 summers back next to a test kit still in shrink wrap. Test twice a week, hold 2 to 4, and put that money into liquid chlorine. Heavy shade, or a pool that blooms the same week every year, is a phosphate or circulation problem. That's a diagnosis, not a bottle. And never combine algicide and chlorine in a bucket or a jug. Each goes in separately. Lean on the quat, let chlorine drift under 1 part per million, and the bloom comes back thicker. Overdose it, and the surface foams for a week. $25 a season. That's a maintenance problem wearing a chemical costume. The next one isn't sold for algae. It's sold for what's left when the algae's gone. Number 6 is Clarifier. Around $18 a bottle, sold to clear cloudy water overnight. It's a charged polymer. It clumps the fine particles in your water until they're big enough for the filter to catch. The clarifier doesn't remove anything. The filter does. A pump running long enough to move the whole pool through that filter does the same job. Cloudy water in a pool with chlorine and pH in range is almost always short runtime or old filter media. Cloudy water call outside Belleville. The sand hadn't been changed in 9 years, and there were 4 empty clarifier bottles in the pump house. Run the pump 8 hours minimum on most setups, backwash or clean the element, and check the age of that media first. Cartridge and DE owners skip this one. Some clarifiers blind an element and it never recovers, and nobody swims until you can see the main drain. That's safety, not housekeeping. Overdose it and you gum the media. Pressure climbs, flow drops, water gets cloudier than it started. 2 or 3 bottles a season. 25 years on pools, and I've never once bought that. Number 5 is the one bottle here some of you need and most of you don't. Number 5 is Stain and Scale Control, the metal sequestrant, bought preventively. About $30 a quart. A sequestrant is a chelating agent. It wraps up dissolved iron and copper so chlorine can't oxidize them onto your liner. That only helps if there are metals in there to hold. Fill water across most of this metro carries no meaningful metal load, so the bottle binds nothing and degrades under chlorine within weeks. Your chlorine and pH don't move. A quart handed across a supply house counter to a woman who'd described nothing but a cloudy week. Test your fill water once, at the spigot, before it ever hits the pool. If metals read 0, this bottle never enters the shed. If you're on a well, or you've already got rust-colored staining, this one doesn't apply to you. You have a real metal load, and you dose on a schedule per the label. Skip it on well water, and chlorine oxidizes that iron out of solution. Brown staining on the liner inside a week, and it outlasts the water it came from. $30 to $60 a season for a bottle solving a problem the water doesn't have. Everything so far is something you bought. The next two are things you do. Do me a favor and go count what's in your shed. Not the ones you're using, the open ones, the ones with an inch left in the bottom, the ones you can't remember buying. My route average is 6 open bottles per pool, and 4 of them never get finished. 6. That's not a homeowner problem. That's what happens when every symptom has a bottle attached to it. Put your number in the comments. I read them between stops, sitting in the truck with the air running. Number 4 is the bottle that creates the need for itself. Number 4 is pH Increaser, used as a weekly routine. About $15 for a 5-pound tub. Pool pH climbs on its own. Carbon dioxide comes off the surface and out of every return jet, and pH follows it up. So if pH keeps sinking, the problem isn't pH. It's total alkalinity, the buffer holding pH steady. Low buffer, and pH slides no matter what you add Saturday. A pad in St. Charles County had pH Increaser and acid on the same shelf, both half gone, bought 6 weeks apart. Test alkalinity, bring it to 80 to 120 parts per million once, then leave pH alone and let aeration carry it up. Chlorine doesn't change. Never store a pH product next to an acid product, and never combine the two. On salt, you drift up harder, so you'll be trimming pH down, not pushing it up. Chase it up and down, and alkalinity ratchets higher every cycle until pH won't hold anywhere. Then the fix isn't a bottle, it's a partial drain. $15 a tub, 3 or 4 a season. Fix the number underneath it, and the problem goes away on its own. Number 3 is the one everybody does on a calendar. The calendar is the problem. Number 3 is Shock, bought on a weekly calendar. About $7 a bag. Shocking means driving chlorine high enough in one push to burn out combined chlorine. That's the leftover from chlorine attacking sweat and sunscreen, and why a pool smells like one. It's a correction, not a routine. If free chlorine held all week, that work already happened, a little at a time. A homeowner in Waterloo shocked every Sunday for 11 years because the builder's handout said so. Good water the whole time, and $250 a season proving it. Test combined chlorine. Above half a part per million, shock it. At 0, do nothing and hold free chlorine at 2 to 4. Cal Hypo is corrosive. Gloves, eye protection, open air, product into water, and never water into product. Dose near a return with the pump running, small amounts, then retest. Never combine chlorine types with each other or with any acid. Nobody swims until free chlorine is back in range and the water's clear. Skip a real shock when combined chlorine is there and you get the smell, the stinging eyes, and chlorine that won't hold. $180 to $250 a season on a correction nobody needed. Two left, and both are a number instead of a bottle. Let me correct something. Balanced water isn't a feeling. It isn't a color. It isn't how the surface looks when the sun hits it right. And it isn't an instinct you develop after a few summers. 4 numbers govern the whole thing: chlorine, pH, alkalinity, stabilizer. Every bottle I've cut so far was covering for one of those 4 going unmeasured, which is why the fix keeps costing money and keeps not working. Your water doesn't read labels, it reads numbers. Number 2 is the cheapest ingredient in the store, sold at 4 times the price, 2 aisles over. Number 2 is alkalinity increaser, about $20 for a 10-pound tub, sold to stabilize pH swings. Turn the tub around and read the panel. The active ingredient is sodium bicarbonate. Bicarbonate is the buffering compound that resists pH change, and it's the same thing sold by the box in the baking aisle. This one isn't about function. You need the bicarbonate. You don't need the container. I watched a clerk read that panel out loud to a customer, and neither of them heard it. Buy bicarbonate by the box, roughly $8 for the same weight. Broadcast it over the deep end with the pump running, then wait a full turnover before you retest. Chlorine and pH stay put. Add in halves, never the whole calculated dose at once. If you've got a heater or a salt system, check your equipment spec because those run tighter targets. Dump it all in and retest too early and you'll overshoot, lock pH high, and drop calcium out of solution. Haze at the returns. Scale on the heater. About $12 a tub, several tubs a season. You're not buying a chemical. You're buying a smaller container. Number 1 isn't a product at all. It's the reason the other 6 were on the list. Number 1 is buying a chemical before you test. The reflex bottle. Every product on this list is sold against a symptom you can see. Green, cloudy, itchy, foamy. Add them up and it's easily $200 a season. A symptom tells you what the water looks like. A test tells you what it is. 6 of the 7 I cut only got bought because nobody tested first. Every one of those symptoms is a number. Free chlorine, pH, alkalinity, stabilizer. Correct the number and it's cheaper, faster, and you're not stacking products on each other. Green Pool Call in Jefferson County. 4 products added in 5 days. Free chlorine read 0 the whole time. 1 test kit. Twice a week, 10 minutes total. 4 numbers before any purchase. If you don't have current numbers, don't dose. Waiting a day is free and guessing isn't. Store products separately in their original containers and never combine anything in a bucket. Dose blind long enough and stabilizer stacks season after season until free chlorine tests in range and does nothing. The only fix left is replacing water. The other 6 run $250 to $400 a season, downstream of 1 skipped step. So what stays on the shelf? 3 bottles. Here they are. Liquid chlorine. Sodium hypochlorite, 10 to 12.5%. This is the sanitizer, and nothing else works without it. There's no cheap equivalent because it already is the cheap one. It's the least expensive form of chlorine per pound of actual product, and every alternative adds a carrier along with it. Stabilizer, or calcium, and that carrier builds up in your water until it boxes you in. Buy it by the case from a pool supply or a hardware store, roughly $6 a gallon. Buy fresh and buy often, because it loses strength sitting on a shelf. Hold free chlorine at 2 to 4 parts per million, dosed at dusk, near a return, with the pump running. Muriatic acid, around 31%, for bringing pH and alkalinity back down. Nothing cheap replaces it, because pH climbs constantly, and something has to bring it back. Dry acid will do it, but it adds sulfates, and those build up over years in water you aren't replacing. Roughly $8 a gallon, 1 or 2 a season on most residential pools. Gloves, eye protection, open air. Acid into water, never water into acid. Pour slowly near a return with the pump running, small doses, and retest after a full turnover. Never combine it with any chlorine product. Not in a bucket, not in a shed, not ever. I've handled this stuff a long time, and I still respect it every time I open one. Cyanuric acid, stabilizer, bought once in a small amount, Nothing replaces this one either. It's all that stands between your free chlorine and the sun, which strips unstabilized chlorine out of the water in hours on a July afternoon. About $20 for a container that lasts several seasons. Target 30 to 50 parts per million. Add it in halves through the skimmer. Check it once a month, then mostly leave it alone. Here's the part people miss. Stabilizer doesn't break down and it doesn't evaporate. The only way that number comes down is replacing water. So this is the one bottle where less is the entire strategy, and where buying more is how you end up draining a pool in August. So there they are, 3 bottles: liquid chlorine, muriatic acid, cyanuric acid. That's the shelf. I track what I spend because it's my business. Across my route, a residential pool runs about $120 in chemicals for a full season on those 3. The shelf version of the same summer runs $350 to $500, and it doesn't buy better water. It buys more bottles. That's the principle, and it's number 1 wearing its real face. Your water doesn't have 7 problems. It has 4 numbers, and everything that shows up looking like a separate problem is one of those 4 out of range, wearing a different face. Go count your shed. I told you my route average was 6 open bottles a pool. Tell me how many of the 7 I just went through are sitting in yours right now, and be honest about the ones with an inch left in the bottom. I read the comments between stops. Whatever that number is, don't go throw money at it tomorrow. Test first, then decide whether you've actually got a problem. Next one is test kits. Which ones give you a number you can act on, and which ones are guessing in a nicer box?